Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode number 20. Last time out, disaster absolutely struck. And the funny thing about it is it's got major hints of realism to it, so I suppose I just have to accept it. But, oh wait, no, I gotta rant about it first. Sorry, you might want to skip ahead a couple minutes if you don't want to see this portion. But, last time out, Logan Sargent was slammed into by Sergio Perez. Oh, surprise, surprise. There's that hint of realism. We'll come back to that in a moment. But the effect is it ended up leading to back-to-back incidents in just a matter of laps. I really should have just retired him the first time. The damage was significant enough that he couldn't handle driving the car after that. And literally the next two times, any other driver came up alongside him. Actually, in one case, it wasn't even another driver alongside him. The car just became undrivable to the point that he ended up with two further incidents that finished the car off. So the chassis, the front wing, suspension, all destroyed. But most importantly for me is the powertrain damage, because we're talking about $7.5 million worth of damage. Gearbox completely destroyed, the ERS and the engine both taking significant damage and now only being practice worthy. That hurts a freaking ton. But back on the Sergio Perez part and the rant. Perez himself is not a bad driver. He's an okay driver. He's good enough to be an F1, most certainly, but he's shown his vulnerabilities over the years. When Ocon, young guy, much younger than him, came into the team, or at least a few years younger than him, came into the team when they were both driving in a pink car, he really started to lose it later on into that season as Ocon really began to outclass him. And 2018 Singapore absolutely just made a meal of that race. One of the worst race performances ever, as Perez intentionally took out Ocon very early in that race. And then later on with like Sorokin or something, Williams driver, whoever it was at the time, got stuck behind them with a somewhat damaged car after he had, taken out Ocon. He had the quicker car but couldn't get around him. Singapore's hard to overtake anyway, and getting frustrated, hit him once, hit him twice, just an intentional the second time. Just terrible. Absolutely horrible performance. Now, Perez hasn't shown those levels of vulnerability for a long time. But he started out this year, some would argue differently. When it comes to Red Bull, they have been very, very upfront that they have a number one driver. Max Verstappen is their guy. Anybody who is in that second seat is always expected to be the wingman, and they are never allowed to race each other. The car is not only built to favor Verstappen's driving style, and that's a huge element of the advantage that he always has over his teammates, because he has a unique driving style that's not matched by anybody else in Formula One. But beyond that point, we live in a cost cap era. Teams can't just pump out parts the way they used to. They have to be very careful about the parts that they produce, just as I'm doing right here in this F1 Manager game. And we have been at times where the cars have not been equal. Now for us, it's pretty easy. We're going to make those decisions. We have a developing driver who's not expected to perform, and we have one who's expected to get the performance out of the car and do their best. Right now, that's car number 2 up over here. It's always going to have priority. Team after team have hinted and or straight up revealed that at times over the course of the season, their cars are not equal. They're able to develop a new part, but instead of just pumping out half a dozen of them, because of the budget cap, they're able to make a couple, and then they bring it to one car. One car drives an upgraded version, tests it, they get the data back on it, they run it for a couple races, and then either they're already moving on to the next component, or they've gone back to the original component because it didn't do what they thought it would, or they begin to produce more. Whatever the case may be, the reality of what we're seeing in Formula One in 2023 is on a very regular basis, cars within a team are not equal. And it has been made incredibly clear to us who the number one driver at Red Bull is. And Max Verstappen always has priority. Beginning of the year, and the beginning of the year for every team, cars are going to be equal because they're coming in stock. They're coming in at a base level for the year. The upgrades don't start rolling in for a handful of races. Who won 2 of the first races over Max Verstappen? It was Sergio Perez. Suddenly, the cars become very, very unequal, and suddenly Perez begins to struggle. Now, not making Q3, not making Q2, those are extra struggles on top of it. The car's not that bad. The car is very good for him still, but it's not on Max Verstappen level. It is not. And they have admitted as much numerous times over the past few years how unequal those cars are and how they are catered to Verstappen and not to Perez. When they had a car that was drivable, he won races. He was beating Verstappen. We had a championship battle on at Red Bull. It was so dramatic, even though everybody else was whining about just how far ahead those 2 cars were compared to the rest of the field. And then suddenly they weren't equal. And suddenly Perez began to struggle. And everything was fine. He struggled to qualify, but then he'd come through and get a podium anyway. Struggled to qualify, get a podium. Qualify, podium. Over and over again, we were seeing the same cycle. The rumor mill started to go with, well, what's going on? Ricardo comes into the B team. They swap out drivers. Ricardo comes in. No fault of his own, gets an injury in, second race, third race? And then Liam Lawson comes in. And all of a sudden, we've got multiple drivers, 4 seats, only 2 seats at the top, and the rumor mill started to swirl around Perez. Suddenly, the guy with no pressure, who was doing just fine but with a weaker car, suddenly had pressure on him. And the last couple of races have been some of the worst of his career. Pretty much the worst besides 2018 Singapore. And that last race, Perez, right off the start, crashes into Hamilton. 100% his fault. I saw somebody trying to defend him, trying to blame Ferrari for it. That is not how a race start works. Okay, track's only so wide. There's only so much space. Half the cars off the start line cannot go as far forward as they would be capable because there's traffic. Traffic exists. On the freeway, you can't go as far forward as you want because there's vehicles in front of you. And on a straightaway at the start of an F1 race. It happens. All the time. All the time. Suzuka is only wide enough for 3 at the start. That's it. Clearly not wide enough for 4 cars. 2 Ferraris side by side. Perez a little bit faster in the middle lane behind a Ferrari. Hamilton side by side with Perez, but also moving forward in the same sort of manner, at the same sort of pace as Perez is. Hamilton is able to fit that left channel, that third lane. Hamilton is moving up into that left lane. Perez sweeps across the track, trying to get into that third lane, but there's no gap for it. There's a Ferrari in front, there's a Mercedes to the left. The Mercedes is taking the available gap that does exist because the 2 Ferraris are to the right-hand side, or middle and right. Perez is going somewhere that just does not exist, a space that is not possible to occupy. Slams into Hamilton. Then, as they take turn 1, he hit him a second time. A lot of people didn't notice that. A lot of people didn't see that. He pushed him off the track, bumped him just lightly the second time. 2 hits in 1. Now, normally they don't give out penalties lap 1, turn 1, normally, unless it's severe. That was pretty severe. That should have been 2 penalties. Hit the guy twice. Completely. The second one I can see not being a penalty necessarily, but the first one most definitely was. Either way, Perez hit Hamilton. Then, safety car infringement. Entering pit road as he overtakes somebody as he's entering pit road before he hits the line that deems where you're at. Exiting pit road, he overtakes 2 cars. Then only gives the position back to 1, stays ahead of another. So, in essence, that's 3 infringements right there. Absolute freaking nightmare happening. Then, of course, he just stupidly slams into the Haas. I mean, come on, that overtake was never on. Yes, he is in the faster car. Bide your time, overtake in a logical place. Yes, you're going to lose half a second over the course of the lap. Such is the nature of I'm an idiot crashing into cars and starting at the back of the grid and going way to the back of the grid and now having to re-overtake the field. You put yourself in that position. The Haas overtake was one of the worst, but he had done the same thing with Albon in Singapore a week before. This is going on longer than I expected it to. I'm sorry, folks. That wasn't the end of it. Could have been worse. Poor driving. Then there's more, right? We're not even done yet. Under the safety car, McLarens are right behind Max Verstappen. Now, there's some distance between them, but they're the only ones challenging Verstappen on the day. We're under safety car conditions. There is a timing that you have to follow. The rules state you cannot overtake under safety car conditions unless, and this is in the rules, unless a car is significantly damaged and going under the pace. Perez is on his way to retire the car. They've already announced that they are going to retire the car over the radio. Lando Norris in a podium position, a matter of seconds behind Max Verstappen. Perez, in front of him under the safety car, drives well below the pace that you were supposed to, well below the delta that you're supposed to be driving at. Norris, behind him, comes up on him pretty quick because he's driving at the delta that they're supposed to be at, and as things are closing up, and it's a VSC, right? So it's not a full safety car, it's a VSC. So you're supposed to be holding your position. Now he's losing time. He waits, he starts to make a move, but then he drops off. So he goes to drive past him because he's being literally held up by Perez. So Perez is backing him up intentionally. I mean, he didn't seem to have any problem with pace when he retired the car. He just retired the car because he was in 20th and took enough damage and was having a bad day. So it seemed, because he came back out, right? And served his penalty and then went right back into the pits. That's a bit of a loophole right there. What he did legally, I guess, was legally, but that's a loophole. Shouldn't be allowable as a loophole. You shouldn't be able to just unretire the car, go out and run a lap, serve your penalty, and then go back in so that you don't get a grid penalty for the next one. But where's all the other penalties? Because he then proceeded, as Norris went to go by, following the rules, keeping to the delta, he ran Norris off the road. He came all the way across and ran Norris off the road into the gravel. Norris saved it, did not wreck the car, and then the VSC lifted and Norris took off moments later. But Perez ran him off the road intentionally. How this guy escaped with one penalty only is insane, and that was easily the second worst behind that 2018 Singapore performance, second worst drive of his career. He's feeling the pressure, in my eyes. F1 Manager, let's play. I'm disgusted that we took this level of damage from another car, that we are going to pay the penalties for this other car, and Perez, 5-second penalty is all that he got. And it absolutely ruined our day and, to an extent, our season. Regulation vote results. Some sporting regulation changes. Only 3 teams have voted for, including us. Everybody else has voted against, meaning there will be no change in the coming year to the distribution of wind tunnel and CFD time.
This weekend, we're in Belgium, in the picturesque province of Liège. Halfway through the season, it's too early to call the championship. Can teams make good before the summer break, or will they be hoping for a reset? Spa-Francorchamps is famous for its long straights and fast corners. Drag efficiency will make all the difference here as drivers zoom through the famous sequence of Eau Rouge leading up into Raidillon. But a twisty middle sector keeps things tricky down on the track.
This time, teams have 2 races to contend with, as a sprint race will decide the starting order for the weekend's Grand Prix.
15 long and challenging laps await the drivers in today's sprint here at Spa.
And once the lights go out here at Spa, the attention will shift to the first corner, a turn that has seen its fair share of dramatic incidents over the years.
So then, it's time to see who wants that victory the most. Here we are, the sprint around Spa-Francorchamps. And it's lights out and away we go.
So we start this sprint race with both cars carrying penalties. Definitely not where you want to be to start things out. Sargent, though, qualified well-ish. Practice got as high as 11th. Could be competitive this race weekend. Florsch practiced ahead of both of the Alfa Romeos in terms of time. She's carrying a couple of penalties for new components. Everything but the engine itself. So new gearbox, new ERS. Sargent carrying the penalties from that last race.
And here we've got a yellow flag.
Albin with a spin on turn 8 will knock him down to last place. Already 4 seconds behind. Florsch is ahead of him and challenging Bottas at this point. We're going to have to keep an eye on fuel wear and potential overtakes here as we come up towards the end of lap number 1, riding on board with Sargent as we head into that final chicane where a lot of the incidents happen here besides turn 1, lap 1, which nothing happened this year. Nobody going over the top of a brand new halo. So, challenging through Eau Rouge and up through Raidillon, and definitely all over the back of the McLaren, and then we tuck in with a whole lot of straightaway to go. That's just idiotic. Sargent, you had the pace, but then you decide to tuck in behind Piastri anyway, who we've been faster than all race weekend. So getting caught behind him while he's struggling is not good. We definitely want to be able to push and get beyond him here. We're set to overtake, but so is he at this point as we're in these first 2 laps. Clearly faster as we've had a look 3, 4, 5 times here. Taking a different line, going, yeah, we can overtake, yeah, we can overtake, and twice it looked like we would overtake and then decided against it. Now, as we come out of this zone, we're set up for, it's lap 3, so everybody should be settling in. We're starting to overheat. Let's see if this time we can actually make the run. Okay, we're going to keep on pushing, though, but let's go ahead and get settled in here for Florsch. Looks like they can just about get away with continually pushing. Florsch is still all over the back of Bottas. Albin's catching back up, though, as the field has kind of stretched out a little bit. Here we go. Let's go. Let's go. We're going to be to the outside here in a moment, but come on. Come on, Sargent. We just pushed an entire extra lap. This should be an easy overtake, but we've got no notice of overtake available. Push! Why? Sargent, you're killing me. Killing me, Smalls. Cannot believe. I
Copy.
have him on turret. Wow. Yep, sure. We're on top up, and instead he goes the other direction and uses the battery. And Piastri is 1.6 behind, so it's obvious that he doesn't have, but neither do we. So why aren't we getting DRS? I'm very confused as to why lap 5 of a sprint race is not getting DRS. And how we are literally losing time now by not pushing. Losing, like, gobs of time. We are so slow all of a sudden. By going neutral. We were all over the back of him, clearly tons faster. This is very confusing. Now there's DRS behind us. Did we never get DRS, or are we literally that slow that we couldn't overtake? Sargent, down to P17. Sargent gets back up to P16. Sonoda goes backwards as he made a mistake, and we're able to overtake him as well. Back up on the back of Piastri, and overtaking him here on lap 10. So suddenly the pace that wasn't there finally is there. It's lap 11 of 15. Sargent all the way up to P14. Now 2.5 seconds behind Norris, though, so that's going to be a hard catch at this point. But we're definitely improving our position for the race proper. Now, Albin is still last place. Florsch has remained ahead of him this entire time, but she has lost Bottas, so she's over 5 seconds down now. Her fuel is nearly right, so she's good there. The tire wear, both at 62%. Both are getting down to it here with the last few laps. Is anybody? Everybody's on softs, so everybody's in a very similar state on that. Albon's a bit worse off because of his mistake. Piastri's a bit worse off, probably trying to defend against Sargent all that time, so drove extra hard to try to keep us behind. And we are catching up. So we've pulled away from Piastri, and we are catching up to Norris. One thing, though, is our fuel is a bit off. Let's wait until we get up on Norris, and then we'll try to get that fuel right. Yellow flag. Local yellow somewhere. And there's been a crash. There's been a crash. It's Sonoda. Second mistake for him in about a lap.
Let's have a look then at turn 6.
Just ran wide, but definitely caught the wall there. He'll be real lucky if he can continue on from that. Sonoda seemingly is continuing on. He's losing time, though. Rapidly. I mean, he went from 3 to already 4.5, 4.7, 4.9. So he's well off the pace. So I'm guessing he is carrying some damage here. Will he wind up pitting? Can Florsch move up another spot? Looks like this lap we should be able to reach DRS range, and then we've got to work on the fuel as we pushed for that extra lap or two. And Sonoda does pit. Sonoda does pit. That's going to put him in last place. Florsch, P18. Sonoda does resume racing, so does not retire the car. And Sargent suddenly at 1.3, not gaining. Last chance here. Will we close up? It seems like we're fast in Sector 3. We're a bit slow in Sector 1. We don't quite have the straight line speed of the McLaren. But we corner better. 1.2. 2 laps to go. We got to conserve. 1.1. Ah, so close. Aggressive. Inside a second. Okay. Already. 0.3. Let's ease off. 0.7. We're going to have DRS here momentarily. We might still be able to get Norris today. 0.4. Now conserve. We're going to be entering the final lap, so we've got to do what we can to both attack and deploy, but get the fuel right. Down to 0.2. Florsch still not quite there either, but at 0. We recover it pretty fast. It's a long lap here. Very long lap here at Spa-Francorchamps. Starting from behind, but almost side by side, and then we'll have DRS. We get the overtake. Who gets the DRS, though? Not us. Gotta push on, gotta push on. We stay ahead. Okay, now conserve. In 13th position, pulling away 0. Positive delta. There you go. We've made it. Okay, drop to aggressive and neutral. Leclerc takes the win ahead of Sainz, Perez, Verstappen for this sprint race. We are now positive.
Good now.
That's a P13 for Sargent. Well done, especially from how we started. We couldn't even get around Piastri and Florsch. P18. P18, not bad. I do find it a little weird that you have to serve the penalty twice, because Sargent did not qualify 17th. He qualified 14th, 15th, and then started 17th. So he was already assessed the penalty for the sprint race, but now he's being assessed the penalty a second time for the race itself. That's not correct. That's not how it works. Punished twice for the same thing is completely wrong. So Sargent's going to have to start from P15, and Florsch is going to start with her 19 grid place penalty in last.
We've got 44 laps ahead of us here in Spa as we get ready for the Belgian Grand Prix. Now, this could be an important race for Pierre Gasly.
Starting 5th is great for them. If they play the race right, there's a real chance to score a good result today.
And the time has come. Let's go racing. Get ready. It's the Belgian Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
Alright, we are racing, but of course we are carrying double penalties this race weekend, which is just idiotic. Not how the rules work, but what can we do here off the line? Is Sargent going to be able to get ahead of Piastri? No. Once again, we're going to be stuck behind Piastri here at the start. We are ahead of both Alpha Tauris. We are ahead of both Alfa Romeos at least, though. And it's quite clear that we can beat the McLarens. I have underfueled by 2 laps for this 44-lap race. That's a lot of fuel to underfuel by, but as I saw during the sprint race, we can make up 5/10 in half a lap worth of underfueling. So you can make up fuel pretty quickly here compared to some other tracks. Therefore, figure it's worth it to go light and to set ourselves up to be fast. It's also a lot easier to push the softs here and not see them degrade rapidly, so we're going to be a little more aggressive. What I need, though, is Sargent to be able to get ahead of Piastri and Norris kind of soon. That 3 grid spot penalty being assessed a second time is really a harsh punishment, especially when the penalty in itself was a byproduct of somebody else hitting us and then us being unable to drive the car. I should have just retired the freaking car. We wouldn't have been carrying a penalty or having quite as much damage to the car as we ended up with. It was still damaging. There was still parts that needed replacement as a result, but yeah, that was rough. But fuel can fluctuate pretty quickly here. You can go both deep and put yourself in a position. As the 2 McLarens go side by side, can they take each other out and set us up well for both Florsch and Sargent to be ahead? Wouldn't that be something? You know what? There's no overtake I can do right now. Let's conserve for a moment and go neutral. We'll just continue to push behind them. There's nothing I could do as they are battling each other. We're not going to squeeze through that, so we're going to take a moment. We're already 1.3 ahead of Bottas, so we can end up distancing from them, but now we need the power here down the straight. We're going to have to bide our time a little bit as those 2 are battling it out, but over a second behind the Haas. That's bad for our race, right? Because we could and should be ahead of these guys and battling with the Haas's already, trying to get up into the points, which of course is the ultimate objective. Okay, let's get back to pushing as that gap has opened up a little bit. But you can see just how much better the fuel is already. 3/10. That's it. Like a third of a lap of lifting a little bit, or half a lap of lifting, or going neutral, and we are 3/10 better off than Florsch is. All right, now everybody's run their couple laps. Actually, everybody's run a few laps. It's lap 4. Deploy. Keep it within a second. Keeping it within 1 second here is important, and keeping ahead of Bottas is important. We did not get DRS there, even though we got within a second. I thought that was before the detection zone that we got there. We didn't, and suddenly Piastri closes up on Norris, but we don't. So that's a bit harsh. We're going to have to manage that. And then, of course, it helps pull Bottas and Tsunoda along. Okay, Tsunoda 2 seconds back. We've got that. We get around Piastri just like that with the toe and the DRS, and then we get around Norris on the very next lap. So Sargent has overtaken both of them, and we're already up on the back of Magnussen as we continue to push. Let's continue to do so because I like the thought of P12. So as everybody's kind of settled in, got their temperatures right, you can see how much better, how much faster we are. That was a Haas on a medium compound, though. So was Norris. No wonder we're able to pull away from them. It is going to offset strategies a little bit, but being on the softs is giving us track position. We are making overtakes. We're all the way up to P12 now. Already better than we finished the last one. 1.8 behind Hulkenberg, though. We've got some ground to make up to get up there to him. Let's see how much faster we are through Sector 2. Tighter turns through that area. Softer compound. Bit lighter on fuel. All of that adding up. And we've already got Magnussen out of DRS range. Had Magnussen out of DRS range through the chicane. He briefly does under braking. That's a Sergeant weakness, I would think. Not necessarily a car weakness. The car itself is better. More capable. Norris gets around Magnussen, but is 1.5 behind. So we're still trying to close up on Hulkenberg for now. I don't mind if we can beat both Haas's and just be running P11. All it takes is one mistake from a top 10 driver. One crash, one collision with each other for us to capitalize and get into the points. I don't think we're faster than any of the top 10 cars, or Sargent can just crash out himself. VSC, he's going to be out of the race. Bye-bye.
Are you okay? All good.
Some brand new components there.
Let's take a closer look. Now this, I think, was at turn 13.
No, he didn't have brand new components.
Within a
Didn't have
split
brand new.
second,
Just
the
totally
impact's
lost
made.
it. That
That's not what they would have
completely
had in mind
unforced
when they woke
error.
up this morning.
Two weakest drivers in the field, folks. Two weakest drivers in the field. Showing it. Back-to-back DNFs for Logan Sargent when he was in a position to do something. He was in a position to possibly get into the points today. He was clearly headed for P11. That's right, she started last because she took the grid penalty for the new components. She's close behind Alvin, though. Definitely hanging with him. Okay, back to standard. Fuel's a lot closer already. See how easy it is here. Fuel is not concerned about the 2 laps. What I'm concerned about is Sargent literally just taking himself out of the race. Ay. Pit window has entered, and the first cars are entering pit road. Already they are entering pit road. Albin heads down pit road right now. Florsch at 43%. I have to keep an eye on that one. Piastri pits, comes out ahead of Florsch here on lap 19 now. We're at 33%, so we're going to have to pit optimal pit stop lap. Good. Okay, she made it. And we ride on board with Florsch as she makes her way on her in lap here. 5 seconds behind Piastri, 7 seconds ahead of Albin, but both of them have already pit, meaning she is definitely off the pace. Now, in all, she's about 10 seconds behind Magnussen. Now, Haas they had to have already pit by now because Bottas would be the next car up the grid order. But was Magnussen the one with the lockup? So maybe he is down there by merit. Number of cars are pitting either way as we head down this final straight into the final chicane, and then we will go straight on into pit road. A little bit beyond the chicane there. So Florsch on pit road for the one and only time today. Team's one and only pit stop today, and thankfully no mistake. They are absolutely exhausted. The number of mistakes that we have had lately has drastically increased the chance. So not making a mistake was big. Tsunoda with a lockup, but Florsch comes out in last place, 8 seconds behind. 8 seconds behind there. Fuel's fine. We'll get up to temperature here quickly and kind of cruise to the end because she is a lot closer, but she's not competitive yet. Bottas and Albin, the Alfa Romeos, the ones ahead of us. We're not going to beat any team today. So that's that already. We are pretty much done. Lap 28 of 44. Fuel's at 2.9, so we might have to lift a coast here at some point, but it covers off really fast as we discovered. Battery's full, so that's good. Plenty of life in the tires, and we were holding at 6 to 7 seconds behind. I have a feeling we're not getting laps. I'm not sure why we lost a couple seconds there. I'm guessing it was just a couple bad corners for Florsch, bad exit, cost her something, not enough to come up as an incident, not a lockup or anything, not a run wide, just a couple bad corners. But otherwise, she has held the gap to Albin throughout this race really quite well at 8.5 right now. But it's still at the back, so it's going to take her development and or the car. Oh, she just spun. Oh, great. At least she didn't destroy the car.
Yellow flag here.
At least she didn't destroy the car.
Now this is what happened as they took turn 8. And the controls lost.
Yeah, did it a little 360, but she's okay. Knocked the tires down to 61% though. They took a bit of rubber. Also, still only 10 seconds behind Albin, so she really only lost about 2 to 3 seconds out of that spin. Got going right away again. Still has not been lapped, but that is no longer the case. She has been lapped now, which also means I don't need to worry about the fuel, because about 1.8, I believe, is the fuel usage per lap here. She's already below that mark here on lap 41. She's only been lapped by a single car, though it's a very long lap. She's about to get lapped by 2 more. But again, that tire wear part not helping. Puts her off the pace a bit further. But not way far off the back. She's not minutes down or anything crazy. She's 15 seconds. 15, not even 15 seconds behind the next car. And nobody else is carrying damage. I mean, there was one other driver made a mistake all day. That's it. That's pure merit. Leclerc, Sainz, 1-2. Perez is third. Verstappen fourth. Gasly, Russell, Alonso, Stroll, Ocon, and Norris gets into the points. 1.4 McLaren today. Could have been us. Could have been us. Should have been us. Let's hope that Sargent did not significantly cause a ton of damage to the car. Obviously, there's going to be a bit. But that hurts. That does hurt. At least we have a new design done. A new chassis. We're going to get that manufactured. Mid-season board review. Board has assessed performance, and really 2 terrible races in a row have hurt us. Current position is 9th, below target. Nothing in terms of the points. Board confidence is medium, so we have succeeded in keeping our job. 750,000 added to the budget. We're still alive, folks, but yeah, the Sargent having a couple bad races here really hurting us. Perez might have been the cause of the first incident, but the follow-up incidents, the second and third in that previous race, and then Spa spinning out on his own. He might have had assistance, might have had a damaged car. Clearly, Sargent cannot handle a damaged car. Shook his confidence. Sprint weekend impacts confidence. We definitely didn't have the setup bonus that we normally get because it's 1 practice session instead of 3 leading up to it. Whatever the cause may have been, we looked so good, and then just 0 pressure, easy corner, loses it and crashes out. A little worried about where we're at. Pit crew as well right now. So there's it's a difficult stretch we're in here in late July. Can we recover? Can we get Sargent into the points? Because the car is nearly there. The driver, not so much. The other driver finally almost competing with the last place car. That's good. That's good to see. But the other Sargent struggling at the moment, and we need him to pull at least a race or 2 together and score some points. If we can get back ahead of AlphaTauri and their 3 points, my oh my, that would go a long ways to helping us keep the job for the year. And at this point, that's my goal, that's my target. Not just score points once, but outscore AlphaTauri the rest of the way. Engine, the ERS, the gearbox appear to be more or less okay for Sargent. That's huge. Yes, we did destroy another chassis, front wing, rear wing, suspension, and I'm pretty much out of spares for a couple of those parts. Also, Porsche, we failed the front wing underfloor suspension, and are going to have to replace those 2 suspensions out. I think we're going to be into some older parts here relatively soon, probably right now. So we're going to go through a little phase here of some cost saving and putting new stuff onto Sargent's car in hopes that it makes him competitive enough to get into that top 10, where we might be going a little bit backwards with Flourish in the short term. So where she was finally right there, about competitive with the Alfa Romeos, with all of these parts, 2 front wings, 2 suspensions in particular. I do worry that I don't have the parts in our inventory, and instead of building the new ones, I'm waiting to design a new one and then build those and just have kind of that limited set. And as long as there's still something older part-wise available for use, we're going to utilize those for this season anyway, until so that we can take that money and invest it in a good way. Invest that in new designs, invest that in infrastructure, and not overly pump out car parts, which is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode with Perez and what F1 teams are doing these days to stay under the cost cap. It's a 23-round championship. We are entering round 14 at Zandvoort next until August 16th. So we got a little bit of time. We got 25 days until we head to that one. This is our summer break. Past the halfway point, 13 done, 10 to go. And with those upgrades, I feel like we can score those points. We can score more than 3 points the rest of the way. Just can we get any sort of consistency out of Sargent? Can we get these two to not crash so much and be so costly to us to try to keep up with them? That's where our money's going at the moment, it feels like, is into car repairs. That's harsh when that happens. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.